Are you ready to unleash your full potential and become unstoppable in your success and leadership?
Welcome to the Unleashed and Unstoppable podcast, where we provide powerful insights and strategies for coaches, corporate leaders, and entrepreneurs. I'm Lianne Carter.
And I'm Carol Register, and we're certified master neuro coaches who are passionate about helping you overcome your limiting beliefs and optimize your performance.
Each week, we'll be sharing actionable tips and strategies using neuroscience, from interviews with industry experts to solo episodes, to help you lead a life of power, purpose, and possibility on your own terms.
Join our community of like-minded individuals. Hit subscribe now, and let's be unleashed and unstoppable together. Hey there. Hi there. I am so excited to be here with you. And we have Lianne with us today. She is always prioritizing her beautiful children. And I'm so grateful that she's paving us a path on how to lead in the midst of motherhood. It's beautiful. And more importantly, we're here to help you be unleashed and unstoppable. We're so excited about it. And we just had an incredible guest that you get to go back and listen to if you haven't heard. We're going to keep the theme of talking about how to break it down and neuro-hack for you exactly what happens in this process so that you, my dear friend, can be unleashed and unstoppable. Let's dive in, Lianne.
Well, let's just acknowledge, right? The listener is a high achiever. They like to accomplish a lot, right? Like do a lot of things. That's just natural, the natural thing about our listener. And just like you and I, right, Carol? And I want to point out, because yes, we are all about neurohacking. We want to look at that and just acknowledging that when we are someone who does like to, it lifts us up, right? Like it fuels our lives, it brings us joy to be able to do the things that we do in different areas of our lives. And what oftentimes we may find ourselves is feeling this overwhelm, right? This overwhelm creep in. And what I wanted to help the listener understand is that overwhelm that you may start to feel at some point is actually caused by your brain trying to keep you safe, trying to keep you where you are, because we know as a leader, you have a vision, right? You are working to create something. And there is a statistic out there that really there's only like 5% in the world, like you and I, Carol, and our listeners, right? Like we make up about 5% of the world of the world. And so a lot of times we might be surrounded by other individuals like us thinking like, oh, everybody is like this. And I will tell you, I learned not the hard way, but I learned that not everyone is like me, right? Not everyone's like you. We're all unique. Yeah. And there's only 5% of us that are actually like this. So saying that, it means that we like to stretch boundaries, right? We like to try new things. We like to get uncomfortable in a way, and yet our brain wants to keep us in the safe and familiar. So this overwhelm will oftentimes creep in to kind of create a roadblock.
Yeah.
For what is that you want to create. So I just wanted to have the listener understand that when that happens, that's kind of just to acknowledge that, right? Like we talked about this a couple weeks ago, right? Acknowledging what's happening, acknowledging what you're feeling, and just being aware. Like that's one way that your brain communicates to you, is creating this feeling of overwhelm.
I think it's such a great point to bring up, because my friend, we know what it's like to be a little bit out of the box. If you're in the 5%, you're not in the 95%. And for those of you in the 95%, you can absolutely live out your dreams in a whole new and different way. It isn't about so much, that you have to fit into a category, but it is about knowing that if you have this inner drive and this inner hunger in you to be creative, to be productive, to play big, to go out there and create impact in the world, that you're not alone. We are here with you. And, you being in your energy of being unleashed and unstoppable is what I'm trying to spit out, is that it's important to know who you are and to stand grounded in that, and to know that you get to be fully you and all your uniqueness, and really understanding the journey that we're going through, because it is a journey, isn't it? Such a process to start to remove those limiting beliefs, remove the overwhelm, change that brain safety that is protecting you in a comfort zone to the comfort zone that you want to have, the default that you want to have. Because the comfort zone isn't really about being comfortable. I don't know about you. Like, I want rest. I want to recharge. I want to refresh. But that does not look like sitting on my couch in my pajamas all day long, every day. Only occasionally, right? Occasionally it's important, but we're creative. We're productive. I want to be in that energy also. So yeah. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, and doing it guilt-free, right?
Yeah.
Like, you get to choose. I get to choose. Carol, you get to choose. You get to choose and define what that rest looks like for you.
Yes.
Right. And then be okay with that. Like, that's what's really powerful. We did speak a little bit about this in a few episodes ago too, about how a lot of times where we look outside of us, we look about how society will define something. And it's really important to define what that looks like for you, right? Even in your family. I know sometimes between my husband and I, we define rest very differently, right? And how we want to spend our time, and looking at, sometimes for some people might think, oh, well, you're working for free, for example, right? But you're giving back. You're volunteering, you're sharing and being part of something that you're so passionate about. And so it comes back to yourself too, and defining that. And it's really easy when we talk about even neurohacking to allow, and not that you're consciously allowing this, but on a subconscious level, kind of allowing what society, what other people around you, how they're defining that. And so standing in your power, right? Like, that's what you and I are all about with this podcast, really standing to invite the listener to stand in your power, that you can define certain things like that, right? And then just acknowledge and be aware of the overwhelm, of perhaps the procrastination or the perfectionism that might show up, which is literally, that's how your brain communicates to you.
Yeah.
Right. To let you know in that case. So for the listener, looking at really neurohacking it down.
Yeah.
Going back to simplicity, right? So that you're not feeling this overwhelm, right? That you are being able to move things forward. Yeah. Carol, where would you invite the leader to start in order to be able to feel empowered and feel excited about what they're moving forward?
For me, it's interesting that you say that, and the simplicity is it's key. When I am in overwhelm, it's a red flag for me. It's a sign for me to start to say no and learn that I get to say yes by saying no, because every time I'm saying no, I'm saying yes to something else. Yeah. What am I saying yes to? So it's more about the yes than the no, but it's about, again, what am I focusing on? Yeah. What am I going deep on? And what am I allowing myself to have the space for? Because if I don't provide myself the space to be able to process and think creatively, then that's where the overwhelm comes in for me. And that's where I get the brain fry and I start to shut down. I'm like, wait, it's too much. And the limiting belief that comes in is, oh, I can't really live my dream because it's going to be too hard. It's going to be too much responsibility. I'm going to have too much to do around this. And this is a big one that comes up around wealth and abundance. I can't be wealthy. It's too big of a responsibility. And it's back there running around and we don't even realize it. And then we're making our decisions from it. And it's been my tendency to overcommit that has helped me and been a gift for me to see what I can do to simplify things and really focus deep on something.
Well, I love hearing that word simplify. I know for me this year, my word for the year was simplicity. And it has served me in so many ways because our brain has a tendency to want to overcomplicate things for us as well.
Yeah.
And so when that happens, it's really easy to, get caught up and think of 100 things that maybe you need to do or have to do, right? Like the shoulda, woulda, coulda thing, right? And I would say that just by knowing that the word this year is simplicity and just reminding myself, and I just say it like simple, think simple, simple. It's almost like all the other stuff starts to fade away.
I love that.
Really think, as you said, Carol, like really on what is that thing, right? I mean, there's lots of books out there. I mean, there's The One Thing by Gary Keller, right? Really looking at what's the one thing and thinking about in terms of the one thing, like what is that result, right? What is that end result that you're heading towards? And then work backwards. Okay, now what actions do I get to take to move this thing forward? What decisions do I get to make to take the action to move that thing forward? And we know through the process we take our clients through, I mean, our thoughts, our beliefs, emotions will impact oftentimes the decision that we make, which is why we love the work that we do. But just having that awareness of understanding that, it comes from that decision to then take the action to then create the result. But it really does help you put the blinders on. So I think that's another important talking about neurohacking is we want to know where we're going, want to be able to put the blinders on and just be really clear and just building the muscle of getting grounded in where you're heading. And I know for me, just that word of simplicity has really helped me sit down and like, okay, where am I heading? What's the fastest, right? Fastest, easiest way to get there. And then it just starts to come to me with that space, right?
It starts to flow. Yes. That simplicity. And I think it's really important to acknowledge you, friend, that, as a high achiever and a leader, you're in big energy. You're putting yourself in uncomfortable places. If you're listening to us and you're following us, then you know that it's in that discomfort zone that we get to celebrate where our true growth and our up-leveling step by step is. And the comfort zone is a misnomer because it's really a place of tension. You don't want to stay there. You don't want to be stuck. But being out there in that energy of movement, of creation, there is a bigger need to take a step back. Why? Because if I'm sitting in my comfort zone and I'm just happy, I'm content, nothing wrong with happy and content, definitely want to be there, but I'm not doing anything to grow or to fulfill my purpose and that my voice matters. If you're in that, then if you're feeling stuck where you're out there in that big energy and you've just hit the obstacles, then I think there is an even greater need for you to recognize that being out of the overwhelm is giving yourself the ability to simplify, to be intentional about what you're focusing on and saying yes to provide yourself space, right? And please go back and listen to last week's episode with Jen Gottlieb. If you haven't heard it yet, she is a powerhouse. The impact she is creating is unbelievable. She's been named one of the top 50 speakers in the world. She's in Forbes. She's been Broadway actress and all of the things she's doing. She is a major influencer. She can tell you because she is in that big energy, that need to, as I like to put it, take the pink marshmallow elephant and eat it one bite at a time. Nobody's eating a real elephant. I love elephants.
Well, let's dive deeper into that a little bit, Carol, for the listener to help them understand what are you talking about? Because as soon as you said that links me back to one of the challenges that my therapist gave me several years ago when I experienced my burnout. And what it was to integrate every day 10 minutes of a mindfulness activity. And I had no idea what she was talking about, which some of you might be thinking. And as soon as Carol was talking about the pink elephant marshmallow, I was thinking, oh my goodness, what? But as soon as you said one bite at a time, I realized it was you're connecting to the mindfulness. So, what's funny is I actually found on my bookshelf, I had like purchased, I don't know, months ago or months prior to that challenge from my therapist, or even years ago, a tiny book on mindfulness activities. And what it is, and I'll give you, I know my example, because that's what stuck for me. And Carol, I'd love for you to dive in with the pink elephant marshmallow. It's like taking one piece of chocolate and putting it on your tongue and really tasting that piece of chocolate. Noticing the layers, right? If you've got caramel, if you've got the salted caramel, you're going to have the salt first and the caramel and the cocoa. And so taking like this one little piece of chocolate and sitting there for, say, a few minutes versus just inhaling the whole chocolate bar, right?
Yeah.
And in that moment, when she explained that to me, it made sense. We are so used to being so busy and going and going and going that taking that time to enjoy and be present and being connected to something as simple as maybe your marshmallow or your piece of chocolate. I mean, that just changed everything for me. And then of course I had my little book and I worked through the different mindfulness activities. And I'll be honest with you, it was stretchy. It was uncomfortable because it invited me to slow down. And that's not the programming that we find that a lot of our clients have, right? That's not the programming that even you and I used to have, right, Carol? Like we've worked through burnout. We've worked through the neuroscience process we teach our clients to be able to understand and embrace and program that sitting there for those few minutes enjoying that piece of chocolate.
I think meditation's such a powerful practice that way, and I love that you brought that up. You're like, what is she talking about? I mean, that is so good though. And it's so relevant because, I equally share the journey where I was continually in my younger years, and especially when I was a younger mom, bragging about my busyness. And my busyness was not productive like it could have been. Now, the learning journey for me happened. I celebrate it, and our failures are meant to happen for us, first attempts in learning. But I didn't really realize how much more productive I could have been, how much more impact and influence I could have had if I had stopped running around on a busy track, on this hamster wheel that we talk about a lot, just spinning, right? And I love this idea of sitting and nourishing a piece of chocolate, a wonderful hot tea or coffee, something that has layers and nuances that you can just literally relax and think about, and stop and pause for a minute. Because for me, getting off the hamster wheel, learning how to be efficient and effective is something that has brought me massive amounts of productivity in a short period of time that I couldn't even dream of earlier. It would have been complete overwhelm and the chaos and, how's that possible? Well, my brain is going to go immediately to overwhelm when I'm in the busyness and on the spin cycle. So I think it's really important and relevant too to bring up the actual neuroscience behind this of our brains keeping us safe by keeping us busy rather than really a form of self-sabotage, isn't it?
Well, and what I realized, the exercise that my therapist had assigned to me was building a new muscle of slowing down. But because, I was someone who was just constantly go, 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 it was replacing like the go, go, go with still doing something, but something that invited me to slow down and be sort of quote unquote still. Because I even remembered the thought of that was terrible. Right.
Yeah.
And now, as you said, like I look forward to that. I create space in that. But that's a new muscle. That's a new pattern that you get to build. So it's breaking the old patterns that don't serve you, which is the go, 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 busy, busy, busy. And then building in that space, right? Setting yourself up for the day, really looking at what is your intention? What are the things that are going to move the needle forward, or set yourself up the night before? A new practice that my sister and I have started doing has been, we text each other every morning now with here are the things that we are committed to. We even break it down in terms of like, this is AM and this is PM. She's preparing to have a baby. I have my newborn, and we still get to move needle forward on certain things. And it's so, even just seeing like the text message is really powerful, because you get to sit in it and really look at what is important. And what's really nice is that it creates a bit of a thread. And then you sort of see, what are some things also that you're not doing and you keep repeating, because oftentimes there's some evidence behind all of that, of like something that could be holding you back from maybe taking action on that too. Or it's not important. And it's like that list of all the things that you feel like you have to do, and you realize that, oh, maybe that isn't something important. So it's just a great little visual to help you set your intentions, set yourself up for the day, and just really honing in on what's important and what does move the needle forward on the things that are really important for you.
I love these neuro-hacks, the letting the chocolate melt in your mouth, and the visual of the text or whatever you want to set up for yourself. Alex, Lianne, talk to us about the terrifying piece of sitting still, because it is a new muscle, and it is scary when we start to change a habit, whatever it is. We're going to experience brain resistance. And when you're in overwhelm or procrastination to really being unleashed and unstoppable in the way you want to be, the brain's working to keep you back in what you are so used to doing, in your comfort zone, in your familiarity. It is often that we're hit with the brain resistance in the form of being terrified or having anxiety around a new experience. So would you talk to us about that?
Yeah, that's a really great question, Carol. In my experience, especially being someone who's been very busy, a lot of my clients really, really busy, sitting in the silence can feel uncomfortable, right? Sitting with your thoughts. Sometimes I know myself, I tend to think about the past, right? So you start to experience maybe a little bit of depression, right? You start to like think about things that you didn't do, or you're thinking about the future, which then creates anxiety. When you're so busy and you keep doing things, I guess it's a protection, right? To experience that. And what I know I have learned, and Carol, I know that you speak a lot to this too, is it's important to allow to feel those emotions, to then be curious about what's underneath that. And now I would say that I look forward to space. Actually, I do have a funny story to share with you actually about meditation. So because I was somebody that had a hard time slowing down, I remember learning that at our senior leadership retreat, we were going to have a meditation specialist come and actually do meditations with us. And I was so nervous because I didn't want to feel uncomfortable. I didn't want to feel all sweaty, because sometimes the thought of sitting in silence for 10 minutes really freaked me out. I started to do meditation. I think it was like 4 months prior to this retreat, because I wanted to build the muscle of being comfortable with meditation. Well, I had no idea that on the other side of that, I would have been creating that space and being able to actually help my anxiety, be able to be more creative, be able to become more productive. There were so many other these benefits of meditation.
Yeah.
But I will say that that's, because I noticed that in myself, I chose to prepare myself so I wouldn't feel uncomfortable with that. Yeah. And so something that's just coming to me, even for the audience and to the listener, is, kind of ask yourself, what comes to mind about sitting in silence, or what does comes to mind as simplicity? Like, what is the busyness keeping you safe from?
Yeah.
Because as you said earlier, Carol, it is a form of self-sabotage. So what is it protecting you from? Yeah. What is the self-sabotage? Like, what are you self-sabotaging against?
Yeah.
And what could become possible for you if you created that space for yourself? You gifted yourself that. Mm-hmm. And what a true gift it could become, like just having that time for creative space. So we talk a lot about this, right? About getting curious and being aware. But it's data, right? Like, I think how to shift it is you're a scientist, and you are collecting data for your science experiment to see if it works or not. And so I find that sometimes being able to like remove that as like more of an external thing can sometimes make it a little bit more comfortable. So that's why I'm kind of putting it out there. Like, think of it as really honestly just data collection, which hopefully would make it a little bit easier to then get curious around the thoughts and the feelings around that kind of silence.
A lot of times when we're looking to go deeper, I think you bring up so many relevant points here. For me, listener, it's been about the fact that there are certain areas where I didn't want to face my pain. And none of us really want to face pain until we feel at some level of ready for it. So when the brain resistance comes up, then my question now for myself is, through my experiences, what pain is hiding here? Mm-hmm. And it's been really interesting because I found out that by giving myself permission to face my pain, where I've talked about this in other episodes. So I invite you to go back and listen to our other episodes. I don't have the number here, but it felt like a monster that was going to swallow me. It was there, it was present, but I was doing everything in the world to avoid it. But it was when I turned and faced it and said, hey there, I see you, I hear you, and I give myself permission to feel you, that it went phew. It literally shrank. Now, I know you who are listening and not watching the video can't tell what means, but I'm literally shrinking my hand down. And another step along that journey has been that when I give myself permission to go underneath and look at something, it doesn't have to be a deep, dark, scary thing. Even if it is something in my past that was in that moment or was truly deeply traumatic. I've experienced those things. We have it. I don't have to face that full memory. I don't have to go there and sit in that. All I'm doing is bringing up, having an awareness of something that my brain is providing for me to keep me safe, acknowledging that it's there and going, hey, I can switch that. I can neutralize and erase that and live the life and create the reality that I want to have. And I think that's a really important point because especially those of us who have more of an analytical side, we can get stuck in the pain. And that's not the intention here at all. It's just to gain the awareness to say, I can neutralize this. I can erase this. Right. So,
well, yeah. And you say, there's two things there that you said, like one, that you're giving yourself permission. It puts you back in control, right? A lot of high achievers, you like to be in control. And the other side of control can also, like, things can also feel out of control. So here you are in control of giving yourself permission. And then the other thing is that you get to face it, right? You get to acknowledge it. You also get to decide what that gets to look like. And you're still in the driver's seat of that. Yeah. Right. You are not allowing, right, the scary monster to be in control. You are now in control with how you are acknowledging the scary monster. So just, it all comes back to really like you are ultimately, right, in control. And once you have all this knowledge about the neuroscience and your brain and how it likes to operate, it allows you to be back in the driver's side. Instead of your brain taking control and making those decisions, especially, the amount that the subconscious plays on the decisions you make and the actions you take and the results that you then, make from that, you are back in control. Yeah. And I think we've really unpacked a lot in this episode, Carol.
Yeah.
For the listener, could you maybe just highlight a couple of few things that you would love for the listener to take away today? And then, of course, maybe the listener, maybe re-listen to this episode to really capture all the things that we've shared today.
Yes. I think it's really beautiful when you can overcome your overwhelm and you can be in the driver's seat. And another shout out to Jen last week. She talks about what she gained from a book, which she mentions in the episode, that taking fear, the brain resistance is the fear. We're not doing things without fear, but talking about being in control, we're in the driver's seat. Fear is over here in the passenger seat. We're like, hey there, going along for the ride, but we get to do what we get to do. And you and I know that the more we take those steps and those actions, neuroscience wise, the more they do become incorporated into our comfort zone, our default zone, and we're just operating by them automatically, which is such a beautiful thing. Recap, definitely taking a moment to slow down, be mindful. And I'm just going to keep referring to that fabulous chocolate hack. Doing something that just takes a few minutes and allows you to pause. You're being intentional, being really intentional about it, being able to decide how you want to simplify. What are you saying yes to? What are you saying no to? What's your focus? Because you get to choose. You have the complete freedom to choose. But then taking those steps along the way to intentionally rewire is so powerful, right? And getting to acknowledge what's underneath, what's causing, this to come up for you, this overwhelm to come up for you, because it is a form of brain safety. And you mentioned something earlier before we got on to record, Lianne, about something about micro versus macro with the brain, with the way our brain's protecting us.
Well, it was kind of going back to the overcomplication, right? Like, especially when we are looking at big things as leaders, right? We're looking at our goals and our visions. And we sometimes what will create this overwhelm is just looking at the big picture. Yeah. Because we're like, well, how do we get there? There's all these things to do. And so going from this macro level, going over to the micro level, into those like little actions.
Pink elephant.
Right. And that's funny because when you talked about the pink elephant, I kind of thought about that, because it is like you've got the full elephant and then those little bite size.
Yeah. How do you walk 1,000 miles, right?
Yeah. Right. We talked about like
at a time. Yeah.
Rome's not built in a day. And so it just goes back to that, the simplicity, the intentional planning, setting yourself up, being clear on that, with the blinders, the one thing, where are you heading? And then just
building a new muscle.
Yeah. But as a beautiful reminder, what you said, right? When you're saying yes to something, it means you're saying no to something else. When you're saying no to something,
you're saying yes to
something else. And so just really, it does come back to the intentionality, the simplicity, and just really focusing on, like the most important task that's going to move something forward, because everything can at some point seem important.
Yes.
And, we do only have so much time. And so how do you want to spend that time, and being really intentional with how it's being spent and what you're spending it on?
Oh, I think that's a whole nother episode right there about how do we prioritize, right? How do we get focused on what we really want and weed it out? But that's a clarity piece. And we have talked about clarity in past episodes and about setting your vision. But yes, there are a lot of nuggets in this and steps that you can take just one at a time, keep it simple, and, allow yourself to have the space to do that in order for you to be able to be in your wonderful, creative, impactful space. So thank you for being with us. Yeah.
My opt-in, my free gift for our audience, looking at top productivity hacks for female leaders, there's a lot of other tips and tricks in there as well, in terms of like the productivity piece. And then I know, Carol, you have your wealth activation too. So not just being productive, but also with your wealth activation, some great questions and reflection to dive deeper as well to help. It all comes together, right? In all that. So it was just, it just reminded me to invite the listener to head on over to the show notes and to grab the wealth activation and our, top, I would call the top neuro-hacks for female leaders, right?
Yeah, I love that actually. And there's great new things inside of the wealth activation. It has been simplified for you, and it's new and it's exciting. So if you've gotten it before, dive in, get it again. It's going to be exponential in your life. And thank you for bringing that up, Alex, Lianne, because we're here for you to provide you with the gifts that will continue to lead you along the path, along the journey. And we're doing that every week right here. So thank you for joining us. We're super grateful for you.
And we'll see you next week.
Yeah. Ciao for now. Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Unleashed Unstoppable podcast with your hosts, Lianne Carter and Carol Register.
If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please share it with others, post about it on social media, or leave a rating and review and subscribe.
That's all for this episode, Wildly Ambitious Leaders. See you next week.